All right, and welcome into this edition of a Vegas Snippet. We are here in studio chatting about All-Star games. Like them, love them, hate them, don't give a shit. That's kind of what we're going to discuss here for the next few minutes. Today's action was the NHL All-Star game and the NFL Pro Bowl. I watched the NHL, the 3-on-3, and I enjoy it. I don't know how necessarily a lot of people have taken to it yet, but as an exhibition format to see your favorite players on open ice and be able to do what they do, my initial thoughts are I'm all for it. What are your thoughts on the NHL's new 3-on-3? I know it's been a couple years, but their new 3-on-3 format and how that differs from traditional format, which was the 5-on-5, which, I mean, let's face it, there was, not a lot of exhibition going on.
Yeah, I'm starting to grow on this new format of the All-Star game for the NHL. I did like conference against conference, but division against division 3-on-3 is pretty interesting. It's kind of like overtime hockey, and I mean, even though some players, especially goalies, don't really care if they're there or not.
Well, I don't know when exactly they implemented the $1 million bonus, but that seemed to light a fire under some of these guys.
Yeah.
The game was in Tampa, Spike, and Brad Marchand was public enemy number one.
He was, but I think towards the end, people started to warm up to him.
When he scored, did you watch the game a little bit? Or the games?
I caught bits and pieces of it. Unfortunately, I couldn't catch the whole thing.
The thing that made me kind of laugh was Marchand had the puck, and they were like, boo, and then he passed it to Point, and who passed it back to Marchand for the goal, and they're like, I don't know if I should have cheered. They literally were like, yeah.
The clap and boo, boo.
Well, they clapped for the goal, and then when they announced his name on the goal, they booed.
No, I think the reason that it's not as vile a hatred as it is for somebody like a Zdeno Chara in Montreal is that Marchand's kind of living it up. Like, he took a picture of himself next to somebody had a sign that had, exterminate the rat or whatever it said. There was another one where somebody on Twitter was chirping at him that said the only thing that Marchand likes is other guys' buttholes, and he responded with, don't forget ice cream. So, he's coming into form of being
He accepts the villain role.
Yeah,
I can see what you're saying.
I think that people are going to warm to him because of that, and plus, it's also because he's not just the pest that he was, even 4 or 5 years ago. He's actually becoming a true offensive threat. And, people will appreciate and recognize talent. So, he'll get shit on whenever he goes to an opposing arena, but he is going to get the respect, too.
Okay, fair enough. That's a good assessment because, I like Marchand. I think he's one of those guys. He's like, I can't stand this fucking guy, but I'd want him on my team every day and twice on Sunday.
Oh, absolutely.
What are your thoughts on just division playing division? I understand, they're on a time crunch, but I really think the first round or so should kind of be a round robin format. You get to play every division and your best records go.
Do one period, and then the final would be like a
1 15-minute period, and then if you're tied at 15 minutes, do a shootout, and then that would determine it. And if you aren't, then the best two records go to the best two records go to the final, or
I like
something
that
you can see. Because I'd like to see the Central play the Atlantic. Because you're talking about Steven Stamkos, Kucherov, Austin Matthews, guys like Jack Eichel and stuff like that. Didn't really get to showcase against Patrick Kane, Patrick Laine, and the Atlantic versus Central and the Metro, like Sidney Crosby going against Marc-Andre Fleury would have made a great storyline.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So I like I like the thought of a round robin format where all the players get to showcase their skills against all the other teams, even if they never have a final. They just say, hey, look, whoever scores the most goals in this round-robin format gets the $1 million. I think that would be a lot cooler. Just something, food for thought for NHL marketing guys.
Yeah, well, I'm sure Gary Bettman's listening with bated breath, so I'm hoping that he's paying attention to this.
Gary, if you're listening, you should have been gone a long time ago. But since you're not,
like our idea, give us a thumbs up.
Give it a whirl over a glass of cognac or something.
I mean, the good thing is that if there's any commissioner out there that's willing to experiment when it comes to exhibition formats, it's Gary Bettman.
Is he an exhibitionist?
He's part weasel, so.
You serve that one up there.
I really do.
He's part weasel, so.
Yeah, I mean, he does look like a weasel. I saw him on they were doing an interview on him Saturday night or something after the skills competition. And I'm just like, he looks like a poor man's Putin.
He does. I remember when they were revealing the team name for the Vegas, and he was out on the podium and
exterminate the rat. That should be his sign.
Yeah. No, but again, going back to people that have embraced the image of being the villain, when Gary Bettman came out on stage to announce the name, he was booed.
He was.
And then when people started dying down, he said, "No, keep it up if you're booing."
Yeah, you're right. He
real
did do
NHL
that.
City.
Yeah. If you're a real NHL City, you boo me. We don't boo the refs. I noticed. We don't boo the officials when they come out. I do.
Yeah, I think some people do. One of the things that I tried to get started here, because they did it during the preseason, but they haven't during the regular season, is when they would announce the other team's starting roster, which they're not doing during the regular season, which that's great. But when they were doing it, I was doing what they do at UMass Lowell hockey games during the Riverhawks games, where people would turn their backs, and then whenever they announced the name, scream, "Who cares?"
I remember it was Minnesota hockey or North Dakota hockey would just say "sucks" after every guy who was announced.
I think that's North Dakota, yeah.
Yeah, they would just, they would say, John Fredrickson. They'd be like, "Sucks."
Yeah, I think it was North Dakota Bison, yeah.
We need to start in the T-Mobile Arena, and I know it's Northeast hockey and it's a Northern hockey thing, is when Bruce goes, "Credit one to go," we should say, "Thank you."
Yeah.
That happens. When I know about Northeast and Northern hockey, they say that. And I mean, obviously we're a new town. We want to develop our own traditions, but nice to keep some of the ones.
We could go like "Thank you, A" or something.
Actually, before they had it sponsored out, it was 1 minute left in the period. The woman behind me actually got a few people to join in with her. At 1:02, she would scream, "How much time?
How much time's left?" I've heard that one too.
And they would announce it, so it was great. But then when they sponsored it, it kind of fucked up the flow of having the.
Yeah, I've seen that one where they're like, because the PA announcer's Bruce. You say, "Hey, Bruce, how much time's left?" And he would go, 1 minute to go in the period. Thank you.
Oh, that'd be pretty sweet, yeah.
So, VGK fans, if you're listening onto our podcast, let's get that thing started. Let's also stop the screaming gallant when we say gallantly in the national anthem.
I haven't heard people doing that.
Yeah, I've heard that the last two games, and when they say "We're so gal," and then they say "gallant," I'm like, no, it's a stretch. Knights is fine.
Yeah, Knights is good. We don't need to really get into it. The one thing that I did want to start too is when Vegas gets called for a penalty. We're sponsored by one of the attorneys here in town, so I don't know.
Ed Bernstein.
Yeah, I don't know why after the penalty is announced we don't say allegedly. I mean, we're sponsored by an
Colin Miller gets 2 minutes for hooking, allegedly.
That'd be pretty sweet.
That needs to start.
Yeah, so let's circle back to the NHL All-Star game before we get too far off. And Spike, you said you watched bits and pieces of it. Taking the format as it is, what are your thoughts on the way they play it now versus the 5-on-5, and where guys didn't really? Do you like the fact that they incentivized it?
I do, because I think people were blowing it off before. Now they're at least putting minimal effort into it. I like the format. I like seeing them experiment. A couple of years ago they did the captain's draft where they brought in, they could pick whoever they wanted for the teams, and I like the fact that they're kind of, mixing it up, because the All-Star game is kind of a dud, especially now that everybody has cable.
In most of the sports, you're right, yeah.
Yeah, so
I don't know of one that I'm like, if I miss it, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe it.
Yeah, I mean, even the Home Run Derby, which was supposed to be like the sexiest event of all of the All-Star events.
Lost its luster.
Yeah, it's like, who cares? Because now the superstars know that when they get into that event, traditionally they have a home run slump for the second half of the season. So it's not the guys you necessarily are dying to see in the Home Run Derby. So, but, with the hockey thing, I like the fact that they're mixing it up, doing the 3-on-3. I could see it even going to 3-on-3 for 5 minutes, 4-on-4 for 5 minutes, and kind of mixing it up that way.
Yeah, I mean, I like the 3-on-3 because it opens up the ice, which we all know. We've talked about that with overtime rules. You get more breakaways. I mean, I can tell you, Braden Holtby just looked like he had no interest in being there. Of all the goalies, I think all the other goalies looked like they wanted to be there, played actually a little bit. Vasilevsky was terrible. Gave up 6 goals in, 20 minutes?
Something like that.
I've always wondered. I mean, let's talk about the NFL Pro Bowl, because when I was a kid, this was so awesome to me. Like, oh my God, this is like when I play Madden on the PlayStation. These are the teams I love to create, and now it's real life. It's the Pro Bowl, and it's like when I was a kid, I watched it not religiously, but I watched it. And I was like, this is so cool. All the stars in one field. As I've grown up, I'm like, man, this is a stupid stupid.
It's like a shit show, yeah.
This is just ridiculous.
Right.
I hate the fact that they moved it from Hawaii, too.
Why, were you planning on making a trip?
No. I would never go to Hawaii.
What? Wait. You gotta delve
What?
into this. Fuck
Why would you?
Snippet.
Why would you never go to
This
Hawaii?
is not going to be a quickie anymore. Why would you never go to Hawaii?
That's what she said.
This
Hey.
snip just turned into a full vasectomy.
No,
I don't know why I was so relieved you went with vasectomy instead of circumcision, but there was like, I just went, oh, good, oh, he went with the right one. Okay.
no, I would choose Alaska over Hawaii.
Show your work, because what the fuck?
I don't know.
I like Alaska. It's a
I mean,
cool.
yeah, and that's fine.
But I'm not saying like, okay, middle of January, let's go to Juneau instead of Honolulu.
Right, but I mean,
Sign me up.
why is this an either-or situation?
Well, first, let's make it an either or. Like, you're telling me that if you had a chance, 2 round-trip tickets for free to go with whoever you wanted, you would pick Alaska over Hawaii.
Oh, absolutely.
And you keep saying that. Like, show your work. Like, why? Why? What's your
I
reasoning?
just find it more interesting, a lot more nature. I like the climate there better.
Do you like the below
Brisk cold.
zero
Yep.
temperatures
Oh,
with
absolutely, yeah.
driving on ice roads?
And
I like the
pure
cold, too,
darkness
but
for
that's
24 hours.
That's too far from me. You're a weird dude, man. Pure darkness for 24 hours. But then also, I think they have, like, nothing but sunlight for sometimes,
They do.
too.
That they do.
So,
a full day of light. Yep.
is that when you go to Hawaii when it's a full day of light?
No.
I don't know. I've never met anybody who's like, I don't like Hawaii.
Yeah, that's.
I've never been.
I
but I'm
mean,
just
I
saying.
choose it over some other places for sure, but
You know, like
it won't be,
Kansas.
no, or Nebraska.
I'm glad you differentiated the two between Kansas and Nebraska.
Is there a difference?
I don't know. I fly over them a lot.
All right.
I did drive through Kansas one time, and it's literally just nothing but.
No, at least
We've
there's
gotten
no-
way off track. Let's wrap this up with the Pro Bowl, because you're right. This snippet got unsnipped. Does anybody watch? I didn't watch it. Did you watch it?
I didn't even know it was on.
that's good point.
I watched like 2 minutes of it when I was upstairs at work.
But I mean, you agree with me. Like, you know, when you were playing video games as a kid, you were like, "These are the teams I created." Like, I stacked them up, and now it's like, it just doesn't. I just don't understand why there's no draw. I mean, for the NFL to be so king,
Right.
and this to still be like, I mean, you got to look at it. The Pro Bowl is one of the last 2 games of the season. One of the last 2 pieces of football we get for 7-8 months,
Something
Yeah.
like that.
and people just completely just ignore it.
I mean, do you think it would be better if they moved it to the week after the Super Bowl or something? I mean,
Well, that's where it used to be.
yeah,
And I don't know if it. I have to check the ratings, but I don't know if it necessarily was any better then.
yeah.
Well, I think part of it too is, you know, now that the teams competing in the Super Bowl don't send their players to the Pro Bowl,
There's that
all of
too,
a sudden
yeah.
you're losing a good. Like Tom Brady, when was the last time he was in the Pro Bowl?
Fair enough.
You know,
it
and-
hasn't been the last 4 years.
Right,
Yeah.
and even when he gets selected to it and is eligible to go, you know, players opt out all the time. So, like, I didn't actually see the game, but if I remember right, Derek Carr was in this year's Pro Bowl. It's like,
I saw that too. Actually,
why?
It was like, why is he in there? He had
Yeah.
a terrible season. But when you finally get down to all the replacements, you're looking at guys who are like, there's a reason he didn't make this.
right.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like the NBA All-Star Game where people are talking about snubs and, you know, this, that, and the other thing. It's like, well, if you want in, who do you take out? And then you have to make a case for taking out some of these guys that are having amazing seasons. But when you look at the NFL, so many guys opt out that guys that decidedly do not deserve to be in this game are playing.
Yeah.
It's like, why do I care?
What about if you can't get him to go to Orlando and you can't get him to go to Hawaii, what about instead of the Hall of Fame game, making that, you know, you get selected to the Pro Bowl for the 2017 season and 2018 season, and then the showcase is when you're enshrining the other players, like the players who get into the Hall of Fame, and then you're showcasing a Hall of Fame game. Unfortunately, you're telling all your superstars, hey, you got to go to Canton, Ohio, and I don't know if you guys have been to Canton, Ohio. It's a dump.
I've been to Ohio.
Actually, dumps are offended by you telling them they're Canton, Ohio.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just something. I mean, there's nothing that really. I mean, I don't have to look at the rating sheet, but of all the 4, I think they're number 3 behind the NBA All-Star Game as far as viewers.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, I think
It's just...
I think the MLB still has the most, which is surprising to me. From last I checked, I don't have updated stats, but it was MLB, NBA, NFL, and NHL.
Right.
Sounds about right. I would say MLB still gets those ratings because now this game counts for something. It counts for home field advantage for the series.
Not anymore.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it doesn't count for anything at this point, but it's still, the last I remember seeing it was the most rated game of watching. But I think with the MLB, it's a lot of, old school guys who still, have that, what's the integrity and the perseverance, preservation of the game. They'll still watch it. So
The pastime.
yeah, it's still America's pastime, whether you want to agree with it or not. That's all.
I would agree with that, yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways, but it just always seems funny to me that one of the last crumbs or morsels of NFL football until we go into hibernation for 7 months, nobody gives two shits about. So I've always found that kind of interesting.
Yeah, I wonder how much that has to do with the offensive playbooks, where guys just don't have time to learn the plays that they're going to have to run at this thing.
I mean,
and all of a sudden it just becomes a super sloppy or basic and boring game.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could realistically just give them a bigger play clock, and tell them, hey, look, you're running the 9 route, you're running the 4 route, you're running the cross,
Yeah.
and you're in the huddle. Just give them every single route.
It's kind of like the replacements.
Do you think it has a testament to? I mean, I haven't seen a Pro Bowl in a long time. I don't know if they actually play the games. I mean, if I could imagine if I'm turning on the game and watching it, and no one's playing defense or no one's a guy's I don't know, maybe make it flag football.
Yeah, I was just about to say maybe mix it up like the NHL does, make it like a
7-on-7, yeah,
5-on-5 type competition. Or,
yeah, no linemen, just run some flag routes and everything.
Right, kind of mix it up a little bit. I mean, you got to do something because clearly this, like you said, this is the last bastion of football, or one of the last bastions before the hibernation. So Goodell, the commissioner, the owners, they have to do something about this. The problem is anything that Roger Goodell touches turns to shit. So I don't know if anything under his tutelage is going to happen.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, I mean, they're such a multi-billion-dollar business that are they really spending, countless nights burning the midnight oil trying to figure out how to fix the Pro Bowl?
Yeah, probably not.
So, yeah, there's some food for thought for Gary and Goodell. If you guys are listening, clowns.
Don't call me Clown Mustache.
This has been another edition of the Vegas Square Snippets. Thanks for tuning in.